very warm welcome to everybody watching this. I, Ashutosh, on the behalf of DEVI Sansthan, welcome you all to Disruptive Talks, our exclusive talk show where we invite dignitaries and talk about literacy, the disruptive interventions in literacy, and what all can be done to better social impact through literacy. Today, with us, we have a very eminent personality, an inspiration to so many people in the education world. We have Ms Anubhuti Mehta with us, the former Assistant Commissioner of Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan. Anubhuti ma'am, welcome to the Detox.
Thank you, Ashutosh, for such warm welcome. I'm delighted to be part of
Great.
this detox.
Great. We are also excited to talk to you about so many things. Today, we are going to talk to you specifically on the topic how important is literacy for social upliftment? Since we are talking about a spectrum where social upliftment is important more than ever, we're going to talk about how literacy can help you in those regards. So before we move on, ma'am, I'd like to give a quick introduction to our audiences, if you allow me. Um, Anubhuti Mehta, ma'am, is a senior level professional consultant and advisor. She's a very famous educationist and educational administrator, a senior level professional with over 30 years of rich experience in schooling, administration, and setting up educational institutions. She's also involved in teachers training, staff development, content development, and she has served Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan for over 23 years, where she took the position of Assistant Commissioner. And currently, uh, Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan has a digitized education initiative, which was all started and discovered by Anubhuti Mehta, ma'am. So she's credited for introducing the digital sort of plan to the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan. She's also formerly been the director of Delhi Public School, Modi Nagar. The school was set up by herself only since February 2022, and she's also the executive council member of Sandesh, which is a CSR initiative of Dabur. Currently, Anubhuti Mehta ma'am is working on a very great project in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, where she's going to open a world-class prestigious school. And she's currently busy with so many things around that school, and we are glad that you could give us some time in the middle of all of that. So thank you so much, ma'am, for coming in and joining us. And anything you want to say before we start with the questions?
Yeah, thank you, Ashutosh, for such lavish introduction and kind words. In fact, I would like to say that we generally ask these questions to teachers: Are you teacher by choice or teacher by passion? I am also one person who will consider myself as a teacher from heart. You know, I was never a teacher by choice, but when I adopted this profession, I am my whole heart and soul is put into this profession, and I'm glad to talk to you by virtue of my position in education. Thank you so much.
I think it's also very it's also very it's also very true that all of us, all the people who are in education and teaching spaces, they have to be teachers by the heart at the end of the day, right? Because that's something that drives the students' motivation also to be in the class. Because
Yes.
if there's an uninterested teacher, there will always be uninterested students, don't you
Correct.
think?
And I always feel, for that matter, my mother was also a teacher. I come from the family of educationists. My father was also in technical education. And they always taught me one thing: whatever you do, put your heart and soul into it. And I believe
Absolutely.
in it. Yes, it is very true. Even if you cook food, even if you meet somebody, even if you talk to somebody like I'm doing it with you right now, you put your heart and soul to the work.
Absolutely.
It gives you pleasure.
Right. So with that, let's give a direction to this conversation, ma'am. Let's start by discussing some key concerns that you find in the current status of literacy in India. Good, bad concerns. I'd like to hear from you.
Ashutosh, I have worked in the field of education from government sector also and from private sector also.
Right.
Everywhere I have found there are few common factors in education that exist. As far as my experience and knowledge goes, there are primarily four factors or I will say that kind of disparities exist in the society which contribute to the illiteracy. First and the foremost is gender disparity. And the second one is the economic disparity. Third
Right.
is we always feel that there is a caste disparity which exists in our society. And the latest and the foremost disparity is the digital disparity or technology disparity. I
Right.
always feel if a technology is provided to all of the people around us, automatically the level will go up. And
Right.
literacy is something which government of India is already working from years. If my memory goes, in 1947, when we got independence, the literacy rate was merely, I think, less than 20%, somewhere 18 to 20%. And today, after 75 years of independence, we have achieved around 77 point something, the literacy rate. The increase in literacy rate is just 60%. Why couldn't we achieve 100%? Is
True.
it so difficult? Yes, it
True.
is difficult because as far as I am as an educationist feel that literacy is individual's responsibility too. We forgot to discuss the points about the individual. There is a school dropout rate is very high after grade 6. Up to grade 5, you can teach a child because the child is just 10 to 11-year old. After that, you cannot force education. It becomes an individual passion. The children drop out from the school because of various reasons, because of behavioral issues, because of individual issues. They don't want to study. Simple. The n number of boys they drop out after grade 6 because they indulge into n number of activities outside the education, and they feel misfit into schools. And sometimes our school system is also very stringent that on small things they send the children out of the school as a part
Right.
of punishment. So that particular segment we don't cater for. So that's a sad state of affairs as far as education
Right.
is concerned. But
Right.
I think once the gender bias, the caste bias, and the technology um, and economic thing is plugged, education will definitely happen, and it's one of the important aspect of life.
That's very interesting. Simply because when you talk of the disparities, not a lot of people talk about the digital disparity. If I have been studied in a like a possibly a high end school, I would know more about my gadgets and I would know about more about my systems. But a person who's in a remote region, a student who's in a remote region, might not even know how to operate a phone, right?
Correct.
That's how much the disparity exists, and it is really important to cater to
Right.
it. Which reminds me of another concern here. Do you think, ma'am, that these four concerns that you highlighted, they come out of a sense of a lack from a particular section, or is this a general sense of like lack of responsibility?
Yeah, general lack of responsibility is paramount, and it is coming from a particular section. If you ask me, it is not caste based, it is gender based. You know,
Right.
I being a woman, I'm also surprised that education um we can contribute to education if the females take part actively in education. Most of the time, it is mother who encourage the child to participate in education in the family. And family is
Right.
the smallest unit of the country, you know.
Correct.
So if in a country every woman participates in education, be it a girl child, be it a boy child, the mother has to encourage the child to take education. I always feel mother is a very important unit in the building of nation.
True.
And mother is
Very true.
always known as the first teacher. So if the
Very
mother
true.
decides my child will study, nobody can stop. Nobody can stop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's also because the smallest unit always becomes the most personal unit to you, right? So as a child also you feel more motivated that, oh, my family is looking up to me, or oh, I have people to answer
See,
to.
I am an example of a highly educated mother's child. I come from a very humble background and come from a very small city in Punjab called Hoshiarpur. Many of you
Okay.
may not heard about it, but my mother, we are four siblings, and my mother was always for education. She used to say, "You can become anything with education." And today I'm proud that my parents took part and my mother really encouraged me to study.
I mean, the consequence of that inspiration is still still relevant in the current times, and that's why we're talking with you also. It's
Yes,
it's always so motivating to look at figures like you.
yes.
um, which also brings me back to the discussion on your experiences, and you've had a plethora of experiences. 30 years is not a less time. I mean, I'm not even 30 myself, so it's more than how old I am currently. So that's really inspiring for me. But when you worked in the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan, the KVS, so to speak, did you have some personal observations on how students were reacting to classrooms?
Yeah, Ashutosh, I have grayed my hairs in education, not in sun. So I say it very proudly any time I hold the mic, and I'm actually proud of it. Whatever I am, it is because of Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangat. Katsi Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan, I had an opportunity to serve in 8 states of India. I'm very well traveled across the country, length and breadth of the country. And I found everywhere, we serve a particular strata of children, wherein children come from are the wards of central government employees, defense sector employees, and fortunately, these children come from educated families, wherein fathers are educated and they have a government job. So financial
Right.
insecurities are not there. uh, Earlier, when I joined Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan, mothers were not highly educated because our personal wives were up to sometimes up to 10 standard, sometimes not educated. But by virtue of being in an environment, in a secured environment wherein you are getting basic needs of life, food, shelter, and security, the children were willing to study. And I
Right.
found the children coming from the children of lesser God, which we call children with the less amount of facilities, they had belly in fire and they used to do very well in education. My memory goes when my first batch of students come out of grade 12, I joined Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan as a PGT, postgraduate teacher, and my subject is physics. Physics is one subject invariably people are, scared of.
Scared of
Yes,
science.
but I am very proud of my subject. I never taught my subject to the children. I developed my subject with the children. I take pride in that. I never said it is a tough subject. I said, let's do it. And children started doing it. Those were the days when we had around, 60, 70 children inside the classroom. I
Right.
myself was very young when I joined. I was just 22-year-old, and I used to teach students of age group 17 to 18. And boys 6 feet high and more than 1 feet taller than me. But they used to feel very good when somebody young talking to them about physics. And I still remember my first batch of students passed out with 100 out of 100 in physics those days, way back in 1990, and
Right.
they are still in touch with me. My topper child is a doctor in Assam. Uh,
Right.
I take pride today also in explaining about him because children, when they do well, just because somebody has motivated them.
Correct.
I'm not necessarily I was a good teacher those days, but I was a good source of inspiration to the children. So that is how teachers make the life of a child, you know. So it's very important that a child should be developed, should be encouraged, not only taught. Teaching
Right.
teaching can happen anytime. But the child
Right.
is motivated to take up education and learning, that's the best thing can happen to a child.
Absolutely. Which is really true, because I think the moment a child gets into the classroom, it's really important to have a teacher to relate to, but more than that, also have a classroom that they can come back to, or they would want to come back to, right?
Yes, yes, very
All.
important.
Yeah, yeah, ma'am, please.
Yes, very important. The child should look forward to come back to the classroom. You have rightly pointed out this aspect. Unfortunately, these days, when I sit in a position and recruit teachers and hire teachers for teaching, I always find some spark is missing in teachers. Some spark is missing, maybe the willingness. I will not blame the society because teachers also come from the same society where we live in. I find that fire in the belly is missing probably, or teaching profession is less paid. This is the reason people don't want to come into this profession. Or maybe sometimes I will blame the education system, where we set up the schools with high aspirations and we start making money out of that. In fact, you may not know that in a school is a non-profit entity. I, since I'm talking to you on this platform and these days I set up schools, I personally feel intervention of government should take place where schools should not be created as a non-profit entity, because end of the day when you invest money and effort, you want to make money out of that. Government should allow a legal methods to earn money. It should not be restricted. If you
Correct.
give a if you allow the people to earn money out of school, there is no harm. It should be allowed. It should be allowed within a limit. And if it is allowed, I think the good teachers will be hired, they will be paid more, and lot of money should be invested on their professional development. And good education will eventually happen if teachers are good.
That's very true. So it all starts with a good teacher and then a good student. So I'm going to turn this conversation around a little bit and now talk about how a child or how a student essentially receives this education that we're talking about, right? We all have been following the concept of rote learning, where A for apple, B for ball, and C for cat is always there. But today we see that there is not a lot of modern positive implication of rote learning simply with Indian students, precisely because they're lacking this sort of practical logistical sense that should have been imparted in them. What are your thoughts on rote learning, and how do you think that it impacts the learning curve of a child, man?
So I've been asked this question on various platforms about rote learning, Ashutosh. I passed out my 10th grade in 1982, a way back, previous century, in fact, I'll say. During my time, there was rote learning was prevalent, you
Correct.
know, and it's not that I studied in that system, so I will criticize that system, but I personally feel that rote learning helps up to certain extent. See, there is no harm. Our education has certain notations. Like for example, why do write we write one as one, two like this, three like this? You have to understand this. You have to mug up this. You have to be exposed to this identification again and again. This is one. This is two, and that is how two plus two makes four. The notation changes. Y plus sign is addition. Y minus sign is negative. So these are also rote learning method. So I don't find any difficulty in having a rote system existing in the education system. Yes, but it should not hijack the system. It should not take over the system. And I come back to this point again. It depends upon the methodology of teaching.
Right.
So the
Absolutely.
methodology of teaching has gone wrong over a period of time. I have never studied geography after 10th standard, but I still remember my best teacher was geography teacher. She used to take a scale and you know, make India's map on the ground with her
Wow.
stick. So
Wow.
how amazing that teacher was. She taught me southwest monsoons. She taught me how monsoons are made. That memory and that image is still fresh in my mind.
All these days.
No amount of education can make me unlearn or relearn or learn that again. So I feel a good teacher, the good methodology of teaching, and how impressionable the teacher is, that makes lot of difference. So
Absolutely.
rote learning cannot be eliminated from the system. Lord Macaulay in 1800, I believe, too, he spoke about Indian system of education was the best system of education. How
Right.
can you say that our system did not know about the methodology, and today the entire globe will teach us the methodology?
Right.
I, I'm not a very orthodox teacher, but I'm a proud Indian. I always advocate the Indian system of teaching, and I feel the values system, the character of education, the character comes from the education system, and Indian education system was the best. And I have no doubt that this will be the best system in the entire world.
Right. That's really insightful. And you mentioned something about methodologies here, ma'am. You mentioned something about you. You said that methodology is all that it depends on, because even the rote learning system is hijacked at the current times, right? Uh, I would like to introduce to the audience as well, and to you as well, that DEVI Sansthan, which is founded by Dr. Sunita Gandhi, uh, follows this methodology of accelerated learning for all, which is called ALfA, which is basically a detour from what we do in rote learning, and then making students learn and understand on the basis of sounds, on the basis of images. So instead of saying A for apple, you would rather show a picture of apple and ask the first sound of apple, which is another alternative methodology to teach and learn. And we've seen such great results all across the country, and even in 18 plus countries where this alpha program or pedagogy has been adopted. So I think alternative ways is also something, or alternative methodologies is also something that we should look at with regards to the coming future generations, right? Because it's also changing times, and it's also changing technologies, as we said. On that, the thought that comes to my mind is the idea of these new ways, right? What are your thoughts on bringing new or alternative ways to impart education and literacy? Do you have any personal suggestions in mind with regards to these alternative methodologies?
Oh, yes, I am very progressive teacher, and I feel technology is the best alternative method to teaching. Like Dr. Gandhi is known to me as well for in the field of education. She is a name to reckon with, and I personally feel she is doing excellent work. I have seen her material and literature over a period of time, and that is one aspect, that you create books, workbooks, and you train teachers. The another aspect is, let's have technology rolling in.
Right.
And nowadays, during the COVID, we found that technology was the only source to impart education, and it really worked well. Platform like yours are taking our voice to the various people. Earlier, only the print media, the radio or television was the source of talks. And now today we are talking on another platform also. So I feel education can work very well, and good teachers can reach up to the masses through the technology.
Right.
And good methodology of teaching can be widely spread through technology.
Absolutely. And I think to add to that for our audiences, we'd really love for you to explore what we do at Devi Sansthan, because technology and alternative methods based on peer learning, we make students sit with each other in pairs during accelerated learning for all, our alpha programs, and their students teach each other, they create questions for each other, they create answers for each other. So ma'am, do you think this also creates a sense of conversation or communication in the classroom? Because these alternative methods do demand that kind of conversation.
Oh, yes. Peer learning is the best method of learning, if you ask me. In case not only in the learning, otherwise also,
Right.
in life also, for teachers also. When we train teachers, the peer learning session helps them a lot. You learn a lot from peers in leadership programs also, in teachers training, and of course the students are always benefited. But my concern is when peer learning happen inside the classroom, you are confined to those 40 children. But if peer learning happens with the technology, then you can talk to a child probably sitting in UK, US,
Absolutely.
Canada, Australia. That is flipped classrooms. Over a period of time, flipped classrooms are also very important. And a good teacher can reach up to the students in the remote area where you don't find a good trained teacher. So maybe recorded sessions of teaching of a good teacher can reach up to there. That is also a wonderful source. And peer learning is the best. Nothing can replace the peer learning. I still believe in that.
Absolutely. And I fully support that because at Devi Sansthan also what we believe is that a child is the best learner and the child is the best teacher for their friends and their circles, right? That's how it functions. Moving on to another territory or another aspect of this discussion, since we are talking about uh, uplifting the society, we're talking about taking literacy and taking technology to teachers and students alike. And also, ma'am, as I was reading about your introduction as well, you've been working with various nonprofits and corporates within their CSR spectrums, within their advisory roles. I just want to know, how does that side of life come into picture as an educationist for you? And where do you like start implementing the social impact or the advisory roles that you go through within the education field?
Yeah, Ashutosh, after exiting from government profession, I always had this desire in my mind that I was fortunate, that I was groomed in the best of the atmosphere in education as well as in defense. My husband was a defense officer. I was fortunate. Many of us may not be that fortunate, to come to such roles and rise up to rise in the field of education. So it becomes my moral responsibility to share my experiences with others. And the best place to share experiences is to venture out in non-profit organization. So in 2013, when I left Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan, I decided to adopt few Anganwadis in Chanakyapuri area in Delhi. We used to live in Chanakyapuri. And to my surprise, where I lived, just a few meters away, there were slums. That really my heart goes for that, those children wherein they are not that blessed. Their parents, their living conditions probably are not favorable. So I thought might as well visit them once a week and speak to them, educate them. So that is how I ventured out into Anganwadis first, and then I slowly joined few organizations to name with Bharti Foundation, Mobius Foundation, Sandesh. I worked with Lakshmipat Singhania Foundation. So I found everywhere, people are doing wonderful job. All of us are willing to give a lot to the education. Then, since I have an experience, why not to share that?
That's
And
very well.
coming from a educational family, probably this was built inside me that it is time to work with society.
Right.
And I would love to work with society till my last breath, you know.
And
I hope.
it's absolutely inspirational to all of us watching, because figures like you give that sort of inspiration to us that, yeah, there is so much more to look forward to. If we're talking about missions like the Nippon Bharat, if we're talking about Digital India, all these missions can only be carried forward by people like you who've also been in and out of the system all across, and it's really inspiring to me personally to talk to you and talk about all these things. We are also running quite a lot on time, so I hate to really bring this discussion to a close, but few questions before we end this discussion, ma'am. We're talking of social upliftment essentially through literacy, right? uh, what is your thought on the idea of an inclusive lens being adopted? Because you started with the idea that there are four ways or four concerns, which is economic, digital, caste based, and gender based. In that particular regard, how important is inclusivity in education to you?
Yeah, yeah. Education has to be a wholesome thing. You can't say that education can exist with disparities. A good education system should be inclusive. I'm all for it, be it the caste, be it the gender, be it the economic, be it the digital divide. All kinds of divide should be abolished in education, and each individual should be given an opportunity as a basic need. Education should be treated as a basic need. You know, every individual should be given equal opportunities. Now, it is up to the individual that how far an individual can walk with education. Where
That's
he or she can reach, it is individual's concern, but opportunities should be given and it should be all inclusive. We should close all kind of subsidies, be it any kind of subsidies should be closed down by government of India, but inclusive opportunities should be given to everyone, especially in the field of education.
especially the people who come from underprivileged backgrounds, I think, because
Exactly.
those people need to be uplifted, and that's what we're focusing on as social upliftment, no?
No, I will correct you here. Not only the underprivileged, the gender biases. The
Right.
gender biases are deep rooted in our country. Those should be taken out. You know, underprivilege is one aspect, but gender biases should be removed. Caste
Absolutely.
biases are up to certain extent. It is already over because the new generation is not concerned about the caste. Up to our generation, caste system exists quite deep rooted, but up to your generation, the caste system is slowly vanishing. So I'm happy. I'm happy to see changes happening, but the gender biases should also go away, especially in the remote areas, not in the cosmopolitan countries. Around us, we are privileged to see, good gender system in gender equality in metropolitan cities, but in remote areas, it should be removed.
Absolutely. And
That will help education to flourish.
I fully support that idea, because that will definitely help education to flourish. And to everybody watching this talk right now as well, I think what we should focus on is making this education system more inclusive by trying, if we are coming from a privileged background, because people like you and I, ma'am, we do come from privileged backgrounds one way or the other, right? So we need to also acknowledge this privilege. We need to also give back to the society, and I think one way we do this at Devi Sansthan is by giving back through our ALfA program and through education. The one way you do it is by advocating so much of digital literacy, by advocating so much of transformation for students. And I think that's where we lie similar grounds together, because that's where people like you come into picture, people like organizations like Devi Sansthan come into picture. And all that we look at is the upliftment of society through literacy and through education, right? And I would like to really know your thoughts, your closing thoughts for our audiences with regards to how they can better the spectrum of literacy for those who need it the most.
See, in the field of education, we use one term Ubuntu. Ubuntu means I am because we are. This is a term coming from, a language, Xhosa language of South Africa. Ubuntu is I am because we are. I exist because everybody around me existed. And it is my responsibility is to reach up to everyone. The humanity, like our prime minister also always say Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. I feel
Right.
that is the best thing to happen. Each one of us should be sensitive to the needs of others, be it in the field of education, be it in the field of upliftment. Anywhere we should be sensitive to our fellow citizens. That's important. That makes us different from
That's
other
very well.
countries. Yes, we Indians are different on this aspect, and I feel the Ubuntu feeling should prevail everywhere. Everybody should contribute to the to other fellow citizens. Everybody should work for each other. That's how we can rise. That's how we can become the best.
That's really a strong message to end this conversation on, because I think everybody watching this should realize this after this talk, that we all are a family, and especially when it comes to uplifting the social spectrum, especially when it comes to bringing equity and equality within the society, it's us who do it together for the ones who don't have it. So let's take a pledge, let's take a promise that we are going to carry forward this with inspiring figures like Anubhuti Mehta ma'am and others, and so many more teachers and so many more educators who are working day and night with dedication, opening up schools, working on pedagogies with people like Dr. Sunita Gandhi also, who are working on methodologies to impart this literacy into people so much. And it has been a wonderful time talking to you, Anubhuti ma'am. I would like to thank you on behalf of DEVI Sansthan, on behalf of Dr. Sunita Gandhi. And personally, I'm very inspired after today's conversation. It gives a lot many insights.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashutosh, for having me. And I am great fan of Dr. Sunita Gandhi. And anything I can do for Devi Sansthan or anybody listening to this conversation, please reach out to us. I will be privileged to work for you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much, everybody watching. And please subscribe to Devi Sansthan for more such talks. And we'll be back with another guest, another dignitary, talking about the importance of literacy and education only on Disruptive Talks. Thank you.
Wonderful talking to you. Thank you, Ashutosh, for having me.